Hello.
Hello. Hi, Mark.
Hello, everybody.
So,
Uh,
so what we have here, Mark, these are sixth grade language arts students getting ready, as we talked a little bit about, for the survival project. And they're super excited to talk with you today. So I'm just going to let you just jump right in. They don't want to hear me talk. They want to hear from you. Let's let you introduce yourself, kind of share what you do and what's going on, and then we'll get into some Q&A. So I'm just going to hand it right over to you, big guy.
well, I fight polar bears for a living, and I'm super scared of facing you guys this morning. So be gentle on me, okay? So I'm calling you from a place called Stratford-on-Avon, which is in the UK. If you like Shakespeare, that's the area I kind of live in, so beautiful green area. But I work in the cold climates of our planet. I started my life in the military, and then I went on to work for fire and rescue services. And then after that, I started to get into expeditions. And I've now done over 30 major expeditions around the world, based in areas like place you might have heard of, Alaska, where I ran dog teams in Alaska, and we shot a documentary for a school programs in the UK. I've done solo expeditions in the South Pole, one of only 8 people in history to reach the South Pole solo, unsupported and unaided as well. And that was a 50-day expedition to the geographic South Pole. I followed that then by a geographic North Pole expedition solo as well. So a very tough journey for me. I've got to reel these off, haven't I? Magnetic North Pole as well. I've been there. I don't know if you know, but there's actually 5 North Poles. Did you know that? Oh, wow. And you thought you were just going to listen to me, but it's actually, you're going to learn something. That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, hopefully I've got this right, though. 5 North Poles. So we've got the geographic North Pole, which is right on top of the world. And then we've got the magnetic North Pole, which your compasses point to. Then you've got a thing called the geomagnetic North Pole, which basically takes in all the pressures and the effects that the Earth has. So geophysicists like that. You've also got the pole of inaccessibility, or the Arctic pole, which is the furthest point from land. And then the final one is the celestial pole, the point from the North Star to the North Pole itself. So it's in the air. So I've been to 3 of those: geomagnetic, magnetic, geographic. I've also ran a company in the Himalayas, and in 2013 I climbed Mount Everest. And I trained people in the for mountain and polar expeditions, and I work with the military on other expeditions as well. So quite extensive sort of learning of how to survive in cold weather. Can anybody guess? I'm going to ask you questions. Is that all right? Yeah. Can anybody tell me what they think is the biggest danger in working in cold weather? Guy at the back with the green thing on his black t-shirt. Yeah.
I would assume that it would be frostbite and.
Did you say frostbite, buddy?
Yes.
Okay, I'll turn my computer off. That's it. Okay, you sit down. That's great. So frostbite's a good one. It's kind of what I'm going to be talking about. Sometimes people say polar bears, open water, whatever like that. The biggest killer is actually sweat. So when you go training, if you play basketball, whatever you play, rounders, whatever, you sweat naturally, which is fine. But if you stand still in a freezer, which effectively I do, so I work in temperatures around about minus 35 to minus 60, which is tremendously cold, that sweat will turn to ice. And if it's around the core of your body, so your heart and your lungs, everything that keeps you alive, then you can actually get hypothermia and die. What you're talking about is exactly right. It's frostbite usually happens in the extremities. so around the finger area or around the toes. And these are the points where the blood goes closest to the skin, and it stops the circulation. And once that circulation goes, the indication is you get this white, sort of clammy, thick skin. And after that, starts going black, and then it's like wood, if you like. And then you can just snap it, cut it off with a knife. So yeah, that's frostbite, but it's easily detected. So the biggest killer is actually sweat. So the art to survival in the polar regions is a very simple thing. It's actually regulating your own body temperature. So when you're moving along and pulling a sledge behind you, which weighs probably 3 times the weight of your teacher there, so a really heavy sledge, 3 times I said, not 1 time, 3 times, you are generating a lot of heat. So the idea of opening your jacket, letting the heat vent out of you is a big survival tactic. So you'll see pictures of explorers with frost all over their face, all ice faces. That means when they breathe, that breath turns to moisture, and it will also freeze on their faces. I've been asked in the past what's the difference between Antarctica and the Arctic Circle. So Antarctica, as you know, is a landmass with millions of years of ice on top, and the Arctic Circle is an ocean. So you've got the Arctic Ocean. So is there any distinct cold difference between the both of them? Well, there is. If you don't mind, we can do a little experiment. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, we want to do something. Good stuff. All right. So imagine the wind blowing in Antarctica. Antarctica's very, very dry. It's effectively a desert, whereas the ocean is very, very wet because of the ocean effect on it. So let's blow the wind in Antarctica, and if you blow on the back of your hand to get that effect. So everybody can do this. So that's the wind blowing in Antarctica. Now the wind blowing in the Arctic. Lick the back of your hand and blow again. Oh yeah, you get that sharpness, don't you? Can you taste your breakfast as well? Pancake day here in England. So yeah, you can basically feel the sharpness of the ocean. Now there's a couple of things that I do want to talk about. One is about my ascent on Everest, because what I do for a living is awesome, but it's also very, very life-threatening as well. And a friend of mine nearly died at the summit of Mount Everest. So I want to tell you about that. And then I want to finish up on what I'm doing in about 3 weeks' time, which is being classed around the world as the toughest expedition on the planet. And it's also an opportunity for you guys to follow me on the journey itself. So first of all, Everest. In 2013, I spent 73 days on the mountain training for the Everest ascent expedition. It's a little bit of a shame we didn't meet each other then, because I linked with over, probably about 100,000 students around the world visually via Skype, because Skype are my main sponsors, you see. And when I ascended Everest, we took the children virtually into the crevasses, up the mountain, nearing the summit itself. So a great project. When we reached 8,000 meters in the final ascent, has anybody seen the Everest movie? Ah, nice one. That's good. So you imagine then, you're at that final ascent and we're heading up there, just as those guys did. And it was in the dead of the night, and it was minus 45 with a 50-mile-an-hour side wind. Now you've got to remember that I'm a polar explorer, so I'm used to cold weather, strong winds. I kind of dismiss it really, because I know it's a part of what I do. So I don't get emotionally sort of involved with that. I just deal with it. I don't know if that makes sense at all. So when I was heading up, I didn't really mind the cold and the wind. But when I got near the summit, now you've all seen the film. Did you see where the guy died on the ledge? And they did a shot where they just went over the ridge and looked down. Well, that's where we were at that point where he died. And my friend dropped down in front of me. And I've known this guy for about 10 years, a Nepalese guy called Singhi. And he dropped down, and I went up to him, pulled him right up to my face, put my arms around him, and shouted in his ear, "Are you okay?" And he looked at me, and his eyes were all over the place. And basically, he was dying in front of me. So I turned back to my friend who was a doctor, and I said, "Peter, Singhi's dying." And Peter said to me, "My feet are frozen. I need to head down the mountain." So the fourth member of the team is a guy called Pemba. And I turned around to Pemba, and Pemba's 6'2", Nepalese guy, really big, strong guy. And he was crying. And he said, "I need to get down the mountain." So I was in the position on the verge of reaching the summit of Mount Everest. I was literally about 300 meters away from the summit itself. And I could see the summit, the head torches of the people on the summit. So that position, what decision do you think I made at that point, leading the expedition? Guy right at the front with a bit of paper.
To go back down.
I went back, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else got a decision on that? The girl at the front?
Did you let them go down and go up yourself?
That was a little bit gargled. Can you shout that out to me again?
Did you let them go back down and you go by yourself?
Did I ascend by myself? Okay, that's a good one. I like that scenario because I do a lot of solo expeditions, so it makes sense for me to basically solo the final 300 meters. Anybody else got an idea? It's more or less one or the other, isn't it? Well, the decision I made was based on who I am as a person first, and as an explorer second. I made the decision that life is bigger than a mountain. The important thing about an expedition is coming back alive. And I know I've been quite hard hitting with this story, but you've all seen Mount Everest, the story. And there was a fundamental mistake in that film where the guy turned round to him and said, "This is my last and only chance to summit the mountain." And the guide, who was very experienced, said, "Okay, I'll take you." And at that point, everybody in the cinema, when I watched it, went, "Oh no!" even though we knew it was a true story. There are decisions on expeditions that you make that change people's lives forever. And this is what makes it modern day exploration. I made that decision. He came down. Last year, I actually climbed a 6,000 meter peak with him in the Himalayas, and he lived. So everybody lived from that journey. I think if Singhi had died, then I wouldn't be here today talking to you guys. I'll be doing another job somewhere. So everything is based on coming home alive. Now, I want to just move on to the final section of this, which is what I'm doing next. In about 3 weeks' time, I'm going to be flying up to Norwegian group of islands called Svalbard. And I know your teacher will probably look at that a little bit later on. It's in between Norway, the top of Norway, and the North Pole. It's a group of small islands. I'm flying up there with the two other guys who are in the military. And from there, we're going to helicopter with some Russians into the North Pole. They're going to drop us off at the North Pole, probably hovering above the ice, and then it will leave us alone and disappear. From that point, we're then going to make our way south over 500 miles, which is about 800 kilometers to the coastline of Canada. And what we're going to do is be crossing open water, dropping into the water, swimming across, pulling our sledges with us, and the three of us will cross this open area of Arctic Ocean to the coastline itself. We're going to film it as a documentary for Discovery, and that will lead me on to my final expedition, not my final one, but my next big expedition after that, which is called Project 8848. And I know I've just made a quick link with your teacher, but I'm going to discuss with him maybe next week, if that's all right with you. about bringing your school into Project 8848. It's in 2017. We've got a company called Lonely Planet, which is a book company who are getting involved. Another company called Guinness World Records. You've probably heard of that. And what we want to do is involve 1 million students around the world in an ascent of Mount Everest again. So it's going to be filmed for a documentary. We want great schools around the world to get involved with my expedition. And we're going to link you directly into the mountain live and with other students around the world. So we're going to use Everest as a central point that all the other students could communicate to and from. Does that make sense? Yeah. If you say yes, then I'd like to understand it, because it doesn't really make sense too much to me. It's quite complicated. I know that I'm going to climb Mount Everest with 1 million students around the world, and that's awesome. So you can see why exploring is awesome, but it's also dangerous as well. The final thing I'll say before I take questions is, when I had a message from your teacher about Skyping me, I was really excited, because I love it when students love exploration and get involved with it. I don't expect any of you guys to be polar explorers. All I expect of you is one thing, and that's just to think differently about life. Because in your country, you've got tremendous opportunities to have an awesome life and do whatever you want to do. And I know you're quite young at the moment, but the only advice I'd give you is try and find something in life that you're passionate about. Because I'm passionate about exploration, and I enjoy every single day of my life. I really enjoy it, including today. I've also got a polar bear tooth to show you. So that's a polar bear tooth that was given to me by an Inuit hunter in 2003. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, have you got any questions for me?
All right. Come up. You need to stand up to the camera and make sure you speak clearly, okay?
What was your worst experience?
My worst experience was, I think coming down Mount Everest. We abseiled about 2,000 meters off Everest itself, and I was emotionally drained. And because my friend nearly died, it made it even more difficult. So coming down the mountain of Everest was the most dangerous thing I've probably done.
Who else got a question? Up on up. Whoever has a question, go.
How long have you been preparing for your upcoming expedition?
2.5 years. So 2.5 years we've been raising funds. So we've raised over £350,000, which I think in your money is maybe about $600,000 to $700,000. I know, wow, it's a lot of money, man. So we've raised that money, and that's the documentary as well, and books and things like that we're doing. In amongst that time, last year I crossed Iceland on foot. I also crossed Oman in the Middle East, and I crossed the Himalayas and Norway as well. And then, oh, that's my dogs. Okay, just 1 second, that's my dogs. Hang on a second.
Show us the dogs. The door open. It's Georgie.
Sorry about that. That was my dogs. my partner, she's a teacher, and she's just come home from school. So my dog started to bark because they saw her at the window. There you go. So yeah, so 2.5 years I've been planning. What's the next question?
Alex, go.
Were you ever at the verge of death on any of your expeditions?
Myself, no. My friend, obviously, as I said, was. But for me, no. I calculate risk. I think from being in the rescue services and being in the military, I understand risk. So I don't put myself in a position of death, basically. That'll come later.
Chris wanted to go.
If any of the kids here were to climb a mountain, what advice would you give us?
What would I give you as advice for climbing a mountain? Understand what you're getting into first. Because so many people walk out onto a mountain without understanding that it is life and death. It doesn't matter if it's a small mountain or it's Mount Everest. You're outside, you're in the cold, the wind can change, and you could die. So you need to be prepared. You need to know what you're getting into. And if it's a super high mountain and it's your first time, then you make sure that you go with the right people. Go with me. I'm fun. I'll bring my dogs.
Yeah. Can we see your dogs?
You want to see one of them?
Yes. Sure.
Okay, hang on a sec. Hey, you're hungry, aren't you, buddy? Hey? The stars. Come here, Kieran. Come here. Come here, come and say hello. Ah. Come here. You're right.
A little camera shy there.
That's the bigger one. They want to go for a walk in a minute, so I better take them. Have you got any more questions? Couple more questions, maybe.
A couple more here. There you go.
What made you want to become an explorer?
I think I touched on being passionate about what you do at the end there, and sorry to get all heavy on you and everything with it, but it's truly that. I mean, I'm 49 years old now, so I'm an old guy, and about 15 years ago, I found my passion. Wow, 35 years old, so I just love. I love the escapism, the purity of working in the Arctic. Every single day of your life, you've got distractions from people that you know, your cars, buildings, trees, everything that your mind takes in. But I've been dropped in the center of Antarctica where there's nothing. And there's no people or mountains or anything. It's just a white landscape. And I spent 51 days in that arena. And everything becomes inward then. Does that make sense? Because you can't judge anything outside. You look at yourself a lot more. It's an incredible expedition. I lost my iPod on the second day of the expedition as well, so I had nothing to really think about. So I think the environment inspires me. I love the logistics of it, putting them together. I love the education side. I love chatting to people like you guys. And I just everything I enjoy about it, really. I don't know if you've heard this phrase before, but your teacher will probably know this phrase. I never have a Monday morning. Does that mean you probably know that as well? Oh no, it's Monday morning. I've got to go to school. So I never have a Monday morning. So I enjoy it every day. So that's a good thing to do. Get some job that inspires you, eh? Think about that. Honestly, they're good words. Listen to me. Listen to me.
Awesome. Let's do one more question to be respectful of his time here.
Jada.
Here we go.
Braden has the best.
No pressure.
In your mind, what is true survival?
Oh wow. Understanding yourself. Understanding yourself. And that's true survival in your arena as well. Life is really, really tough. It can be tough. Life's awesome. It can be tough. And if you know yourself, if you're a good person, that's the basis of everything. Do you know where the center of the universe is? It's where you are now. Because everything is outward from there. So the most important thing is to know who you are and be a good person, and everything else will happen good for you. Honestly, I don't preach a lot, I just understand myself a lot. True survival. You want a better answer than that, don't you? True survival is a sharp knife shaving in an alligator swamp. That's true survival. Is that a better answer for you? Okay.
Well, awesome, Mark. We thank you so much. Just be respectful of your time. I know you've got dogs to walk and dogs to feed and all that other good stuff. And these guys are getting close to lunch, which is also getting to the lunch line first is true survival in their mind.
Yes, it is.
But thank you so much. This was an unbelievable Skype session, one of the best that I've been part of. So I thank you so much for the words and the ideas and the stories. Give these guys a lot to go back and look and investigate and a process as they continue to ask that driving question to their project is, what is true survival? And that's the answer that they're trying to seek through all of this. So there's a lot of food for thought for them to process here. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Do you mind if I get a photograph? All the guys wave, and maybe you get it in it as well? My dogs are barking, so that's good news. Okay, so I'll put that on my Facebook page, Mark Wood Explorer, okay? You can see that later. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Make sure that you keep in touch, Aaron, about Project 8848.
Yes,
so,
we would love to be part of that.
Look out for it, and then just get in touch with me. We'll put you a part of the team.
Yes, we'll definitely be part of that for sure.
All right, mate.
All right,
okay,
thank
take
you.
care, guys. Have
Take
a nice
care.
dinner. Bye.
Thank you. The dog is.
See you, puppy.
What am I doing here?
We'll see you later.